And there is our audio cue. Welcome again, everyone. I am excited to have you here tonight as we kick off spring HPW. I'm Mandy now, I'm the executive director, and proud to host our partners tonight from the Health Professional Student Association, or HPSA, as we like to say it. And one of my good friends is here tonight to lead our discussion. Emil Chuck and I go back a long way. So Dr. Chuck, welcome to you. You are the Director of Advising Services at HPSA. So I know that this particular topic is a passion of yours, and definitely you bring a lot to the discussion tonight, and I'm excited to have you here. Without really any further ado, I am going to kick it over to you. I'm going to let you take the lead on this. I'm going to turn my camera off so I can enjoy the presentation as well, but I'm here in case you need me. So just give me a shout out in case something comes up during the discussion. But welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Mandy, as always, it's great to be working with you again, as I've worked with you many, many times before in various roles in terms of advising as well as in admissions. So this has always been something I've looked forward to, is working with you with the Health Professions Week. I've always shared some very strong opinions and passions for making sure that all health professions are given their spotlight as much as possible. And I'm glad that this is a workshop that I hope many of you will find very worthwhile, whatever profession you happen to be interested in, whether it is in health professions or even outside the health professions. So thank you so much for coming. The name of this workshop that I've developed for you is called Make Your Move. And really, we want to focus on building decision-making skills for your life and also a health professional career. So this is I hope all of you are able to see the slides. We're going to do some interesting slides to kind of walk you through, and also some of the technology, because this is going to be a very interactive workshop. Just a little bit in brief about the Health Professional Student Association. We are a nonprofit organization that's actually been around since the late 1990s or so. We've always had had as part of our vision a way that we want to serve individuals who want to become healthcare providers for their communities. And over the years, and it's maybe hard to really understand that history, over the years, this organization has been responsible for really trying to promote various doctoral health professions and giving them resources that are free or very, very low cost, thanks to donor support and other support of individuals who have been part of our community for about 20 to 30 years. So this is just a little bit of information about who we are. We're not a chapter-based organization. We're not affiliated with any sort of university or any other sort of big for-profit entity. We're here to really serve you, and we want to do whatever we can to facilitate your dreams so that you can have the same opportunity to attend a health professional school that you want to. Let's go to the next slide and just give you sort of a sense of what we're going to be doing for this workshop. So basically, one thing that is very, very important if you go into any profession in general, and especially the health professions, is that, you know, there's so many things that you have to make decisions on. And this workshop really is one where we want to give you some insight into some basic processes of how you make decisions. And we realize that this is something that is very much missing in many people's educations, from grade school all the way up through undergrad and post-baccalaureate and so forth. And even when you get into a health professions program, decision-making is such a key and important part of your education. So we're going to learn about what has been known about the basic process of making decisions. And we also want to let you in on some simple factors, or at least a few factors that come into play when you have to make a decision to make sure you know if your decision actually is right or wrong. But the one thing I'm really excited about is the opportunity to do some very limited practice, and also to answer your questions in a very engaging and very interactive format. So I hope that you get the opportunity to interact with us. And it's really important that we get your feedback and your engagement so we can really go forward and really explore this topic a little bit better. let's see, on the next slide, we're going to show you how we're going to do this. And so Mandy has actually been able to, I'm grateful for Mandy and the folks on the Health Professions Week team. Take out your phones or whatever you can to join us in this interactive platform called Slido. If you're using your phone, you can use the QR code. If you're on your computer, you can just type in the address and type in this, I guess, this meeting number or this sort of poll number, so you can participate in the survey questions that we're going to be asking you throughout this presentation. So we're going to hopefully give you maybe about a couple of minutes, and we'll see if we'll also see with some test questions coming up just to make sure you are actually there. So let's just make sure that as many people as we can connect in either with your phone or on your computer. And let's see, again, we're going to have a couple of test questions, and hopefully we'll have some people coming in as we can. So let's see if who we have right now in the room. So let's see. So we have at least, so this is one of the nice things that this platform really provides. It gives us a very good opportunity to sort of work and act interactively with individuals who are interested in logging in. And so as you see, many of these results, we can look at them in real time. And so I'm really excited. I don't know who any of you guys are. And so I'm really grateful and thankful that those of you who are coming can participate in this workshop. And again, this is one that we really designed this for as broad an audience as we can. Regular educators like teachers or professors, all the way down to parents and family members and high school students. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to give myself a little bit of time, and let's hope that we can have, I'm not sure if we have a couple more people who might be able to join us, but right now while we're on the live session here, we have about 3 people who are joining us in this live session. If you're joining us online, and I do know because we are recording this session, if you do happen to be joining us on our recorded session, obviously this is not going to be working for you in a live format, but I hope you are able to join along and in many of the questions participate offline in those types of questions. And to keep waiting a little bit more, because who knows, we may have a few more people that we're going to be admitting into the waiting room and making sure that we include as many people as we possibly can. So if you are just joining us a little bit late, we're going to have these connection prompts to the side so that you can participate along with us. So we still have this introductory slide open. If you're on your computer, you can see our web link with an additional passcode in order for you to find us in the Slido platform. If you have a phone and you can read the QR code very quickly, you can sort of snap the QR code and participate really quickly in this first poll. So I know we just had like one, maybe another couple people just join in. I want to make sure that you're included before we move along. We'll have another test question so that you're familiar with how we're going to do with the interactive portion of our workshop just as well. So let me just see. I know we're stuck at about 3 for right now, but let's see how we kind of do it. I'm going to just keep going. I'm going to wait for about 10 more seconds. And don't worry if you aren't able to join us for this question. We have plenty of other questions coming up. So let's continue moving on. As I said, this is really a workshop that's really meant for a broad audience, including educators, including students. And here's just sort of a sample example of some types of questions that you're going to become familiarized and how we're going to navigate this platform. So first of all, this is just a test question. And you're going to see the question itself pop up. So you can read the prompt that as a weekly routine, you go to your favorite coffee shop where everyone recognizes you, and you order breakfast as well as a warm beverage, sort of like a coffee and a donut. The total's $5 and you have enough money. So how much do you regularly tip? And so in this case, we're going to activate the questions and you're going to see the choices in the poll, and you can answer directly in your Slido platform what your choice happens to be. There's absolutely no incorrect answer. Just see what you feel like you want to answer. You just sort of press the button and then it just sort of clips in as best as we can. So I think we've had, again, 3 or 4 people that I know are joining us in this conversation. So as you can kind of see, again, we have an immediate response. And again, I'm not there, we're not going to judge you. We just want to make sure that we are familiar with how this platform is going to work throughout this presentation. Okay, I'm going to wait about 5 more seconds just in case. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to our next slide. So we're going to start off with just giving you some basic insights into what, if you will call it, the science of actually making decisions. And on the next slide, we're just going to go ahead and start with our traditional introduction. So that warm-up question is just an example of one of many different types of decisions that individuals make every single day. When do you usually find yourself in a position where you have to make a decision? Well, a whole ton of times. A lot of decisions that you make are pretty everyday types of decisions that really don't have a big bearing in terms of your life at the very, very end. It's not that consequential. So what you might want to wear, what type of things you want in your coffee, or what type of cereal you want to eat, or those sorts of things. Those are things I like to classify as just everyday decisions, things that are things that you have to decide on that sort of make you sort of go about with your day. Then there are consequential decisions, as on the other extreme, where you really may need some very deliberate thinking, some strategies, some weighing some options, costs, benefits, those sorts of things. Say, for example, you're going to buy a car as one example, or you're going to go on a vacation. Where would you want to go? Well, there's a lot of things that go into play, and many of those very consequential decisions where you may need a lot of other people's input, including your own. Then there's other types of decisions that you have in different ways that you make the decisions. One is known as an impulsive decision. You find something that just really draws you in and you want to go ahead and buy an item right now, or you're immediately sort of set back and say, I really don't want this. I don't like to taste this item. This doesn't look good, or whatever. So you have these sort of impulsive reactive type decisions, as opposed to those that require more thought. So can you wait to buy something as opposed to having to buy it right now? So those are things that, if you have a little bit more patience, if it's not as pressing or not as important, those are other decisions that sort of weigh in terms of if you should act on something in the immediate future, or you can wait it out until circumstances are a little bit better. Another type of decision that also becomes very important, whatever your stage of life is, when you are needing help. And so it's really important to figure out when you're out of options, or you need more ideas, or you need help from somebody else, you need to appeal to somebody else. So when to go for help and under what circumstances it really is an effective step to ask for somebody else's assistance is another just example of many different types of decisions that you make. But these 3 main categories, I feel, are ones that are very substantial to giving you a little bit of insight of the types of decisions that people make when, quote, they are adults. On the next slide, for example, when we're adults, we're talking about things that maybe one wrong move or one right move will carry on with you for a very long period of time. So it's not like, what you have to wear today, what side of the bed you want to wake up on. These are things that ultimately can determine your future success, or maybe present some obstacles that may come in your way when you want to do something that you want to do. So, for example, there are things that we will call the permanent record, such as academic issues. So anything that you do regarding your grades, anything you decide to do with regards to cheating or student conduct, those become very substantial, because these are things that become very difficult to overcome if you have too many of these types of issues on, quote, your permanent record, wherever it is kept. A lot of other things that also come into play, especially if you're thinking about going to a profession or a health professional field specifically, are these other categories. So criminal infractions, if you happen to have some sort of record that is kept by some justice of the peace somewhere, such as a driving record, such as drug possession, any other sort of criminal record, becomes something that ultimately can be a little bit of a problem should you decide to actually go into the health professional field or any other significant profession, legal or whatever have you. Financial implications, whatever you do in terms of buying something or taking out a loan for something, is something that is going to be part of a financial record. So you can see it in your bank account, you can see it in tax returns, a credit report, you can, and those sorts of things come into play. If you make a bad decision, like you were part of the cryptocurrency group and you lost all that money, well, that's part of an example, a little bit maybe on the extreme side, but for many people who decided that that was something they wanted to invest in, that is a decision that they made with certain financial implications. Certainly a lot of things with regards to your health and decisions that you make with your lifestyle may lend itself to some challenges that will ultimately affect you later on. So if you're certainly thinking about going to a health professional field, a lot of things are determined by environment, determined by lifestyle, and determined by trauma. So please make sure that you understand some of these things are going to weigh in, maybe not against you in a career in the same way that those other areas do, but it might affect the way that you can relate to others or that you can do your job efficiently or effectively and so forth from there. So if you're going to be a healthcare provider, many of you want to be role models. And so modeling your own behavior in a way that you want other people to behave like you, or at least behave at their best, is something that many people should think about. We're also, the fifth point is the digital footprint. Many of us are living in an age right now where we're constantly just being on our phones or being on computers, and we leave through our website usage, our app usage, various digital footprints. And this sometimes can show up in the types of advertisements that you see when you're doing searches or when you're doing anything with regards to communicating with chatbots. If you're going to do that and you're interested in a particular school, you might be surprised you might get some piece of mail from a school saying, hey, here's another program that we're going to be part of. So please come to our program. So you'd be very, very surprised how your digital footprint or the breadcrumbs that you leave on the various websites that you do searches for sort of leaves an impression that somebody else can take advantage of. So your choices regarding your digital footprint also play an important role. And this also is very relevant in terms of your personal identity and your relationships and how you maintain your relationships with your closest family members, your friends, and your community. How you navigate your relationships with that group and in terms of being someone who is part of that community or part of that organization is part of a so-called permanent record as well. So all of these things have some influence in the way that you will sort of carry on forward with your life, and how you manage those are part of the various decisions that you're going to be making as an adult, and obviously for the rest of your life as a professional as well. Let's go to the next slide. So basically decision making, I apologize, I saw that there was a typo in there, so I apologize for that in advance. Just letting you know that how do people make decisions? A lot of people have really looked very carefully at this, and there's some resources that are available to kind of help you sort of break down the process of how people make decisions. First of all, you need to know what are you deciding on. Sometimes you may have multiple different decisions to make, but if you focus on one decision at a time, it may really help you to kind of see your path forward in this whole entire process. Because when you focus on the question or the decision that you need to make, you can focus on the types of options making a particular decision will have. So if you go this way, then you can see an outcome. That's step 3. If you go in that direction, then you can compare it with another option and another outcome that happens thereafter, and so forth from there. So this step 2, step 3 piece here, where you brainstorm your options and see what the consequences you think may actually occur, is something that ultimately helps you whittle down all of those options and make a decision for yourself based on various other things that will factor into where you are guiding yourself along the lines in terms of making a decision. The last piece is a really important one, and you're going to find that if you become a professional in any field, health professions included, a piece on reflecting on your decision, on whether the decision that you made and the outcome that occurred that you hopefully anticipated, whether that was something that really affected who you are? Did it give you more confidence? Were you surprised at the outcome, or an outcome that didn't actually occur from what you thought would be an outcome? So the reflection piece is a piece that I really hope that you give yourself a chance to think very carefully about when you do go into a process of making decisions one way or another. And these are things that we're going to hopefully reflect upon in many of the different situations that are going to be coming up in this exercise. So let's see the next slide. Go ahead. Let's start off with our first scenario. There's 4 scenarios that I really have for you that I want you to be able to participate in when you can. So let's see, in this scenario, you're in a conversation and somebody is asking you, and this is basically a quote to you. 2 of my friends talk very glowingly about going to house parties that they have attended where they've been drinking alcohol. They invited me to a party this weekend, but I'm worried I might be pressured to drink. But I see how much fun my friends have, and I don't want to be left out. So what do I do? So with that scenario, let's go and let's just see what you would do. So just using your computer or using the keyboard that's on your phone or whatever device that you're using. Let's see what sort of answers you would have. What would you do if this friend asked you for advice? I'm going to go on mute for I'm going to turn my camera off for about 20-30 seconds. And you could just type as long as you want to in terms of, telling me, what should you do? What should you tell your friend to do? And explain why. Explain why you would want them to do that. So. Okay, so I appreciate those of you who are participating, that you put in your answers. And again, there's no wrong answer here in this case. 2 of you guys basically said, it's okay, go ahead and go anyway. One of you also put in sort of a condition. If you feel like you're being pressured to drink, just don't drink. And then there's another person who says, well, if you don't drink at all, I don't really want to go. And because that's something that, for whatever reason, this is your decision. So there are various options that you see from some of these results here. If I can ask, if you're able to type into this form, can you explain why you made you make this decision? What sort of things would matter on terms of your answer? So let me go into mute for about a minute here. Explain a little bit more of why you go into this answer. Thank you. Right, thank you again for your answers. So if you're participating, some of you mentioned that you're not 21 years old. And so, there's an expectation that if you're not of legal age to drink alcohol, you really shouldn't be participating in it. Another one of you basically mentioned that I don't like alcohol at all. So maybe in a much more safer space, you were able to consume a little bit of alcohol and you're just not really a big fan, whatever, of general alcoholic beverages. And that's perfectly fine too. There are many people that I'm sure if we had a whole bunch of people, what sort of reasons would you have in terms of not wanting to drink? You have what those reasons really are. Well, I know one of those options is, you should go, but don't drink. Why would you want to go to a party and not take part in that type of drinking? Can I ask you guys to go ahead and answer that question also in this forum as well? So why would you want to go to this party if you're not going to be drinking? You can probably anticipate your friends are probably going to ask you that too in this scenario. So you gave some really good ideas too. Sometimes you want to go because you want to be with your friends. Maybe there's opportunities that, you don't really have any other options. You like to hang out with your friends as well too. So there isn't anything else to do. Let me give you one more possible question. If instead of drinking, could you make a suggestion that wouldn't involve drinking, but still let you have a lot of fun at this party, or maybe a different type of party? What are some suggestions you'd have for alternatives that may not involve drinking, but yet you can still be with your friends? If you're able to join us late, if you're connecting with us on computer, you can see the web link and then join our little group with the meeting code that's there. You can also use your phone or your tablet to snap the QR code, and you can also interact with us in this interface called Slido. So I obviously, I ask the question, are there other alternatives that you have other than a party? Well, there are a lot of, again, and if you don't know, that's okay too. This is where hopefully if we have a lot of friends or you have a lot of different experiences, you may go to various different types of parties. There's some parties, for example, where people love to play board games or people love to play video games. And, drinking is not necessarily something that you can do at the same time with, with your console, as an example. So I just want to make sure there's sometimes some people who really like going, who enjoy singing. So some people may have a karaoke machine, or may be singing, or whatever else. You might want to watch a movie. There are a lot of other options to throw parties that don't necessarily involve drinking. And you, for your own side of the house, if you don't know what those alternatives are, that's okay. You'll learn hopefully with time or with the community that you're with. So let's move to the next slide. And I'm just going to give you just sort of some ideas that I want you to really think about. And so I think hopefully you all, from this example, were able to identify what the actual conflict really was and the decision that you need to make. I think from scenario number one, we had a decision that we wanted to make, which is to go to a party and be with your friends or not. And then a different conflict, which is, well, if you go to this party, you might be pressured to drink. And would you be able to still have a lot of fun without having to drink instead? We went through a process where we really thought about what are the reasons why we would go or would not go, brainstorm various options and possible outcomes in terms of being able to go or having the independence to say, I really don't want to go to this party because you have a lot of alcohol going in. I do want to have you also think, even though we didn't ask you specifically, about other factors that could affect the decision. There's many communities that really do not want younger people to be drinking alcohol, or they really have a big prohibition against drinking alcohol. That's fine, and people should be, you should be able to respect that if you have friends who don't drink alcohol at all, or if it's just your personal preference because you've tried alcohol or you've been affected negatively by alcohol's effects to your family or to your friends before. Those sorts of things do come into play when it comes to an individual's decision on whether they want to participate or not, or whether they want to drink or not. And of course, I've mentioned, what would you do next? That's always a question that we go into because we want you to make a decision. So I appreciate that many of you who shared your decision very early on, that you would go but not drink, or you would just go anyway, or I wouldn't go at all because you're drinking. And you'd hopefully make that very clear to your friends, so that hopefully they can value your company in a different way than just, going to someone's house and drinking alcohol, hopefully in a safe way, or we hope it's in a safe way. So in any case, so I appreciate that. So these are some of the things that I know many people from high school all the way through college are thinking of very constantly. So this is not going to be the first time, and hopefully it isn't the first time you will ever be confronted with this type of a question. Let's go to the second scenario really quickly. I'm going to read it out, and then we're going to flip on the platform so that you can start answering. And the main point is, what would you tell your friend Rishi in this situation? So you're hanging out with a large group of friends. You notice Rishi has not been eating as much as everyone else. Rishi wants to earn a spot on the varsity soccer team, and tryouts are scheduled for next week. And for the last few months, Rishi says he or she has been losing weight, eating less junk food, taking supplements, and exercising every day to be as fit as possible for the tryouts. However, the obsessiveness is bothering you and your group. What do you tell Rishi? So let's go to the other side, and I want you to really get your thoughts. What are you thinking about this situation, and what is going behind, what part is coming behind what your advice is in telling Rishi what you're suggesting. So what would you tell Rishi about why this person, about engaging this person in terms of joining the soccer team, and what steps this person is taking in order to be part of the soccer team? Or would you go to somebody else? So type a lot of information. Type me your thoughts about this situation too, about Rishi. Again, I give Rishi either can be a male or female. I don't worry about the pronouns in this particular case. So Rishi can be any friend of yours who is doing whatever he or she can in order to join an athletic team and is taking all these steps. So I'm looking at the responses right now, and it's basically, so I have one person who says, who basically wants to appeal to Rishi and ask and tell her parents what's going on. I have another person here that says, ask Rishi directly why he or she won't eat and offer to help him or her find counseling. So I'm assuming that from these two responses that you think that obviously this is a problem, the obsessiveness is bothering you. So what I want you to think about is, what are some of the things that may result if you confront Rishi in this way? Do you think Rishi will be very open to your questions in terms of asking why he or she is doing what they can? Do you think this person's going to feel that you're not supporting Rishi with regards to making it to the soccer team? I just want to help you keep thinking, what are some of the things that you feel how will Rishi respond to these suggestions? So I think people get worried because, you're sort of, making some tension between your friendship with Rishi, and especially if you're in a large group of friends, but they're also equally concerned. You're sort of worried about, alienating Rishi from everybody else? And is that something that, but can you think a little bit about, what if this is something that's really, really important to Rishi in terms of making the soccer team? And how can you appeal to Rishi's desire to really become a member of this soccer team in the way that you respond to this need in order to make weight one way or another? It's a good question to see. You sometimes can be worried if you bring this up. What if people make fun of me for asking? I'm not sure if you're thinking about the other friends are making fun of you for asking, but if you think that the other soccer players are doing the same thing and Rishi's just sort of wanting to be part of their crowd, those are things that you ultimately sort of figure out when it comes to playing out all these possible outcomes. And so this is one where I really hope that when you think about when you are making these very delicate conversations with your friends, you're doing so in a way that's very positive and something that affirms Rishi in any which way or as you can. I think it's important for you to express that you really care for Rishi. And so even though Rishi's going to be mad at you, understand you need to find a way to communicate that you understand that this may be upsetting, but we're really looking out for your best interests. What do you think would happen if you didn't confront Rishi? Because that's an option too. You might be worried that she may be, or he or she may be doing all these sorts of things, but is this something worth bringing up to Rishi? What if you decided not to take action? What do you think might actually happen? I mean, it's possibly nothing, but what sort of outcomes do you think would happen if you actually didn't bring it up? And it's absolutely okay to say, I don't know. So understand, and I know there's someone else typing in, so I don't know is an acceptable answer here. There's no correct answer here in these scenarios. And certainly one possible outcome is she might not make the team, which is also, that's a possibility. Either, would these steps be necessary in order for her to make the team? I think many of you know in this scenario that we're talking about someone who's playing soccer. And soccer is a very stressful sport where you have to be certainly very, very fit. Are these steps that will help someone really be appropriately fit to play soccer or not? So are there, aside from obviously appealing to the parents, do you think there are other individuals that can be asked to join in the conversation to help Rishi with this situation? So you had telling your parents, that's from a previous answer. Find counseling is another potential answer too. Ask a few friends to talk to her. In the scenario, with a bunch of friends, so certainly the other friends are with you too, supporting you, hopefully, in this conversation. Telling the coach, which is certainly a very good idea too. I would certainly ask the coach or any of the other athletic coaches that are involved with the team. Certainly current team members would also be good individuals, especially if Rishi looks up to them. Joining the varsity team, one doesn't become a captain immediately. So it's really important for team cohesion, for your peers to be able to help monitor and help keep each other accountable. So as you kind of think of these situations and who you could kind of help join in the conversation so that it's the best outcome for her, that she's not going into some very unhealthy habits when it comes to maintaining her weight or maintaining her health. These are things that are going to be very important. And I'm hoping maybe if you have had some experience in these with your own peers and your friends over the years, this will be something that I hope you can anticipate, especially when you become a healthcare provider a little bit later on. So even if you're the school nurse or someone else that is an athletic trainer. Those sorts of things come into play in this type of a situation. So thanks very much. Let's move to the next scenario when we can. And again, I just sort of reiterate the reflection questions that we just went through as well. So we're going to go to a completely different type of scenario. And this one, I'm hopeful maybe you might have some familiarity with it. I know we've seen a lot about it in the news. So let me read the scenario out. While you've been working on your college application for several weeks, you reach out to Sammy, a close friend who is now a freshman at your dream college. Sammy's happy to share his or her or their application with you. However, you notice that Sammy overstated their involvement with tennis, claiming 4 years of varsity status when Sammy was only part of the practice team. Sammy's essay also included a story about having overcome suicidal ideation, which you know as her friend, and she had also admits incompetence, was false. Sammy responds to you that sometimes one just needs to embellish the truth to succeed. And, quote, every one of my friends who did this got into their dream colleges, including the one that I attend. So this is an interesting question. What should you do? Let's go to the platform and let's just see what your thoughts are about this scenario and what do you think you should do in this case? Because you're going to be applying to school and you've now sort of gotten this advice. What are your thoughts now of this scenario as you move forward in applying to the schools that you want to apply to, including the one that she's going to, or he or she, I should say. Let me give you some time, about 30, 40 seconds. So I admit this is a really challenging situation, but yet I'm sure many of you have heard about these scenarios before, and I know college admissions is really, really challenging and tough. It's so tough. I mean, I know many people, it's really hard to do verification. If you did this job or that job or something, it's really hard to verify how involved you are in certain activities. So, we all work in an honor system on the admission side of things. And so we do hear about these stories about people sort of exaggerating what they did. And for many of you who may have been following the news, there have been many parents who had encouraged applications that are absolutely false, that have gotten in trouble and have been prosecuted and been convicted of basically, lying on applications on behalf of their children. So there's a lot of things that again, it's not something that's very clear cut, but I'm very certain that many students think about this all the time. And so your own thoughts coming through this are very, very important. And I appreciate for you all sharing this information. Could she get into trouble if you tell somebody? I don't know. Should she get kicked out? Could she leave the school? I don't, there's a lot of things that, the way things go, there are so many people who've gotten in on false resumes or false applications. We live on an honor system. And so how important is it? I do appreciate the comment that I don't want to have to lie to get into college, still go forward with it anyway, own yourself and own your integrity and your reputation, no matter, even if it might actually cost you a little bit later on or in some subsequent decision, as long as you keep your honor and your integrity intact. That's what hopefully is important. And so, I want you to think about this as an interesting situation. We'll go to the next slide. this is an example where, thinking about right versus wrong really comes into play. And where does the concept of being right versus being wrong come from? In a lot of cases, here are just some of those sources that I want you to really think about. In a lot of cases, there's instances where you have family expectations or cultural norms that will tell you, what's the right way to do something, or if something is really inappropriate or not the right way of doing it. In a similar vein, community norms such as those based on faith or spirituality, those norms and expectations, which may or may not be the same as those family or cultural norms, also can play a role in sort of shaping your behavior and shaping your outlook in terms of how things ought to be versus things that it shouldn't be like that. We can be a little bit more explicit, whether we talk about laws, codes of conduct, codes of ethics, or professionalism, which certainly govern the health professions, gives you an idea of, the limits of what you can do, or, so what the consequences are if something were to happen that happened to be wrong. There are other external influences that also tend to dictate whether you see something as the right choice or the wrong choice, such as, any sort of constraints based on budget, any sort of common knowledge experiences or past experiences, of course, that come into play. If someone did this and this is what happened and you want to avoid it, this kind of gives you a sense of, this is the right path versus the wrong path. Certainly one of the final things that also influences whether you can see things very clearly as being right or being wrong are stresses that are put into the situation, such as you have to make a decision immediately. So you have to have an urgent decision, or the consequences of delaying is going to be really, is going to be detrimental to you. So you have to make a decision now. That stress or that urgency often taints a little bit of one's perception of whether a specific action or decision is really right or really wrong, because you're under stress under the conditions that you're experiencing. So I hope that you saw in the last scenario a number of different things that sort of gave you some pause about things that can be right or wrong, about when people decide, for myself, this is what is the right path. For other people, they decided this is the path that they decided to choose, and I may not necessarily agree with it. So understand your own sort of situation on whether you're right or wrong, and what are the reasons behind why you seem to want to take that position. All right, so one last scenario, just to kind of give you this right versus wrong scenario here. Many of you probably who may be going to college may have experienced this type of scenario. So we have another student named Finn. Finn's parents want their college-bound child to study science and become a doctor. But Finn's actually more attracted to drama, art, and music. While he or she respects the family and loves them, Finn is extremely frustrated and scared that the parents will withhold financial support for college. Now, you've only known Finn for about 2 months as a study partner in chemistry class, and Finn has been struggling in that class. So how do you talk to Finn? What would you tell Finn, knowing this backstory here? So let's hear your thoughts about how you would engage with Finn about this conversation. Again, decide what exactly is the decision. What are some of the possible outcomes, or some of the possible steps that you could take and their outcomes? And then we can try to see if there's any sort of way that we can come up with some sort of a solution that you think would work. Again, there's no correct answer, a specific correct answer in this case, but I'm interested in seeing what you would do. And again, Finn can be a him, it can be male, female, transgender. It doesn't really matter. We're not really worried about, the pronouns or anything else like that. Just sort of keep to the particular decision here. So as we're brainstorming the various options, one of the options is, well, tell Finn about financial aid. Tell Finn to talk to his academic counselor. Ask Finn why there's a problem talking to parents. Can you guys explain a little bit more about why you feel that that would be something that would be effective? So just keep typing in here as your thoughts are going on here. Why is it important to let Finn have information about financial aid, to let Finn be able to schedule a meeting with an academic counselor? And what do you mean by an academic counselor? I just want to make sure about that. Are you talking about an academic counselor about their grades, about changing majors? Are you talking about a counselor in terms of managing these relationships with family? Because you also point out, ask Finn why he or she can't talk to the parents, those sorts of things. Hopefully we'll give ourselves another few seconds here, but let's go with what the comments are that are coming in on the screen. Yeah, the importance of being an independent adult is very, very critical. It's Finn's life. He or she should be able to make his or her own decisions as an adult. If the parents aren't contributing to the tuition, this person should be able to do whatever he or she wants, right? So go ahead and break that tie. Maybe academic counseling is important so that one can understand how to talk to parents, especially if there are certain cultural norms that need to be respected one way or another about that. And again, we don't really have that layering of the delicate sort of level of details to try to see, how would you change that conversation if you knew this person were of this particular faith or came from this particular heritage or international background or something like that. So there's a lot of things that come into play one way or another about it. And I just want to make sure that, again, when you're coming up with the options, let's go to the next slide, that you really keep many of these other factors in play. So really understand, what are the norms and expectations either with the family versus what the community is thinking and so forth from there. So one more slide. I think I have one more slide before or a few more slides before I go into just having the last few minutes for questions and answers that hopefully you get the chance to use the chat function either in Slido, in some cases even in Zoom. Do whatever you can. If you have any questions, this is the best time. But I'm going to slowly wrap up by saying, I hope you get a chance to really explore a little bit further this process of making good decisions or decisions in general, whether you identify a decision, break down what options you actually could identify, what the consequences of those decisions actually are to help you make decisions and then reflect back on them. This is a process that's really going to be important for your life, as well as something that will be further tested and trained if you go into a health professional career, whatever it happens to be. So I want to make sure, let's see, what's the next slide after this? I do want to assure you, nobody's perfect. You will be making mistakes. And so all we can say is do your best to learn from them, whatever the consequences are, but do whatever you can to really think about each possible decision that you make and what the consequences may be, so that the outcome really is to your benefit, whatever actually happens. But please remember, don't worry, we will all make mistakes and that's all part of the process. What's the next slide after this? So I guess we're back to our Q&A. Let me see if Mandy is back. Let me bring her back in here. And let me see if let's see if we can sort of moderate the final few minutes of this webinar then. So how was that, Mandy?
There I am. Yes. You guys can hear me?
I know I can hear you, so I hope everybody else can hear you too. So thank you so much.
So Dr. Chuck, we've got two questions, one that we've been sitting on for a little bit, and that is what do I do when I know I've made a poor decision. I went to the party, maybe I'm under 21 and I got caught drinking and I've made a really bad decision. And I know you already said nobody's perfect, but what do we do? How do we recover from a bad decision?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we all have to learn, how do we recover from mistakes? And I mean, again, yeah, I don't know if I could really blanket, give you sort of a blanket set of advice because it depends on the decision, quite frankly. But I think at the very earliest, I think understanding that you need to at least understand who have you hurt in this particular, just in this case. If it's a poor decision, did you hurt yourself? Understand and reflect on those consequences, that last step, that step 5. And then if you've hurt other people, what do you need to do to kind of make amends to other people one way or another? So understand if it's a poor decision, what made it a poor decision? Was it why was the outcome not what you were looking for? And what were the factors behind it? I think in a lot of cases, again, people can make, quote, poor decisions, but they looked good at the time. So, if we go back to the drinking while you're at a party, you made the poor decision, but maybe that was because you had people assure you that you were in a safe space and that it was all right to drink. And not all parties are really raucous bad parties. There are some people who will have really, will have people there who will really know how to run a good party. Just because there's alcohol there, they also have food. So they want to make sure that you're in a safe space. So understand what made the decision a poor one. Usually when people make poor decisions, they didn't anticipate the outcomes of going in that route. And so it's only the reflection piece that you have in order for you to really think about the poor decision that you made, and then make appropriate amends, apologize, do whatever you need to do if it's not super consequential. Obviously, if it is consequential, you got caught, be contrite. Be honest, be as upfront as you can, and tell people you are sorry that you made it. You will learn, you accept whatever consequences of whatever your actions are, whatever, if it's punishment or whatever else. But be honest, be contrite with yourself when it comes to that type of decision. So that's a long way of saying it. And there's probably other people who could say it a lot shorter, but it hopefully gets to the point.
No, that's excellent. And then our last question is, how do I deal with my parents pushing me to get into college? So this one was obviously left by somebody who maybe is having conversations a lot like what Finn is having with his or her parents about majors. How do we talk to our parents?
Well, so one of the things that I don't know, since everyone is anonymous here, is so I think part of it is really kind of understanding sympathetically what the other side is thinking, and finding ways to communicate openly and honestly what your thoughts are and why you're hesitant to get into college. Certainly, there's a lot of things that come into play, whether it's cultural, whether it's generational. Like my parents, we never, we got into college, or we never got into college, and it's really important for your education to get. So, kind of understanding the other side in terms of what motivates them, why they feel a particular way about a decision to push you into college. And for your own reasons, for yourself, if you're hesitant to get into college, really understand how to articulate that. List down what things are you really worried about going to college? Is it the cost? Is it being so far away from home? Is it, the fact that, you really want more time to think about it? There are a lot of people who graduate from high school who will take a gap year before starting college. And so there may be an opportunity that you're really looking at that will say, hey, I'd rather do this as opposed to just starting college immediately. Or I might as well, I'd like to go to community college first because it's a lot less expensive. So there's a lot of different reasons. But I think if you know what your reasons are, and you also are sympathetic and understand what the other side, being your parents or your family, thinks about why it's important for you to go to college, you can at least come up with a very good conversation that you can figure out another decision and those consequences that really tend to work out for everyone involved in terms of emotionally what this decision really means. So I obviously, get a lot of other people to help you with those conversations as best as you can. Hopefully you have the resources, whether it's your high school or other people, counselors, if you are in a faith-based organization, someone who's in your faith community, those sorts of things can really help you out, at least to help you really sort of tease your thoughts out in communicating with your other family about this.
Oh, that's such good advice. Finding other people to talk with, especially before you go and have a difficult conversation, especially one with your parents or an academic counselor or a significant other, any of those kinds of things. So.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. I mean, that again, from the earliest slide, knowing when to ask for help is really it's something that's very underappreciated, but don't ever hesitate to ask for help whenever that is really required or really needed.
Excellent. What an excellent piece of advice to end our time with tonight. I cannot thank you enough for being here and running through these scenarios with us. And I'm going to say right now, I am going to post this video to YouTube tomorrow, and I am going to see if I can't leave the Slido open for another 24 hours. So that way, if folks do grab that QR code from the YouTube channel, that they would be able to participate. So I'm going to see if I can't do that, because this was fun. I really, really enjoyed this.
Did you want to go back to that last question? I know you had did you have fun? I don't know if anyone had a chance to answer that one yet, but I hope
Let's see if there's anybody around. As I say, let me see. I'm going to jump in.
Still there? If not,
there we go. We've got one person.
Okay, did you have fun? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your feedback about that and sticking around to the end. We did have that slide. This is part of a process that we do, situational judgment workshops, and we're working with anyone who's interested. For sure, we work closely with people who are trying to position themselves for health professional careers in terms of pre-health offices, but sometimes these conversations we recognize should be there at a younger age in terms of secondary school or even primary school. And you can see the resources that I have cited, they're for a 6th grade curriculum in terms of decision making. So we know a lot of people need a lot of help on that, and I hope that this presentation really helps inspire more conversations locally, so you can learn a little bit more about that too, and be able to be better decision makers. So
wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, on that note, I am going to stop our recording.